The USA is not only known for its haunted historical places, but some police stations are also among the most haunted spots in the country. These old buildings have witnessed crimes, violence, and tragedy, leaving behind restless spirits. Many officers have reported strange sounds, ghostly shadows, and unexplained events. From abandoned jails to active precincts, these haunted police stations continue to give chills to those who walk their halls, even today. Now we will visit the most haunted police stations and jails in the USA. Number 1. Old Charleston Jail in Charleston. The Old Charleston Jail in Charleston, South Carolina, is known as one of the most haunted jails in the entire USA. Built in 1802 and active until 1939, it was the site of countless stories of pain, violence, and death. Many criminals, pirates, Civil War prisoners, and wrongly accused people were locked inside its cold, dark walls. Some of them never made it out. Even today, visitors say the spirits of the past still haunt the halls of this terrifying place. One of the most famous ghosts is Lavinia Fisher, believed to be America's first female serial killer. She was hanged at the jail in 1820 and is said to still roam the building. People claim to hear her scream, "If anyone has a message for the devil, tell me now," the same words she shouted before her death. Many have seen shadowy figures watching from dark corners. These shadows often move without sound and vanish when someone tries to get close. Some visitors have even taken photos that show ghostly faces and outlines that weren't seen with the naked eye. People often feel invisible hands touching them. Some report being pushed, grabbed, or feeling something brush against them when no one is nearby. This has happened in almost every room, especially in the old cells and staircases. Unexplained footsteps echo through the building, even when it's empty. Guards and guests say they've heard heavy boots walking above or behind them, but when they check, no one is there. Strange sounds are also common. Crying, whispers, and even loud banging have been heard at night. Many believe these are the voices of prisoners who suffered or died painfully within the jail's walls. In the execution room, where hangings once took place, many visitors report feeling sudden fear, pressure on their chest, or the sense that they can't breathe. Some faint or feel dizzy without explanation. One visitor claimed to see a ghostly pirate with chains around his neck walking through a wall. He was likely one of the many pirates once jailed there before being put to death. The old Charleston Jail remains a place of fear and mystery. Its terrifying stories and ghostly encounters continue to scare all who enter. Number 2. Alcatraz Island in San Francisco. Alcatraz Island in San Francisco, California, is not only one of the most famous prisons in the world, but also one of the most haunted. Known as The Rock, it was once home to some of America's most dangerous criminals, including Al Capone and Robert Stroud. From 1934 to 1963, it held inmates in complete isolation. Surrounded by freezing waters and strong currents, escape was nearly impossible. But while the prison closed decades ago, many believe some of the spirits never left. Visitors and park rangers often report hearing crying, whispering, and cell doors slamming shut when no one is around. One ranger heard banjo music coming from a closed-off area of the prison. It's believed to be the spirit of Al Capone, who used to play the banjo in the prison shower area during his time in solitary confinement. In cell block D, also known as the Hole, prisoners were kept in total darkness and silence. People who enter these cells today feel sudden chills, hear moaning, and sometimes sense someone breathing beside them. One former inmate claimed he saw red glowing eyes watching him in the dark just before he died the next day. The lighthouse on the island is also said to be haunted. Lights have been seen flickering on and off, even though it's no longer in use. Shadowy figures have been spotted walking near the tower and disappearing into thin air. Guards once reported hearing the sounds of chains dragging along the floors and the cries of invisible prisoners late at night. Even when they searched the entire cell blocks, no source was ever found. The prison hospital is another terrifying area. Some have seen ghostly figures lying on the old beds or walking down the halls. Cold spots and sudden dizziness affect visitors who enter, often forcing them to leave. In one story, a group of tourists heard loud sobbing coming from a cell. When they approached, it stopped. But moments later, they saw a misty figure float down the hallway and vanish through a closed door. Even boats passing by the island at night report strange lights in empty rooms and hear faint cries coming from the shore. Alcatraz may be empty of living prisoners, but the dead seem to have never left. Number 3. Maxwell Street Police Station in Chicago. The Maxwell Street Police Station in Chicago was once one of the busiest and most dangerous police stations in the United States. Built in the 19th century, it served one of the roughest neighborhoods in the city. Over the decades, it saw violent criminals, corrupt officers, and many unsolved deaths. Though no longer in use as a police station, the building still stands, and many believe it's one of the most haunted places in America. Many former officers reported hearing footsteps echoing in empty hallways during night shifts. One officer claimed he would hear boots walking behind him, but when he turned around, no one was there. This happened so often that officers began refusing to patrol the upper floors alone. In one of the old interrogation rooms, visitors have heard screaming and pounding on the walls, even though the room is locked and unused. Some believe the sounds come from a man who died during a violent interrogation decades ago. A former prisoner who committed suicide in his cell is said to haunt the holding area. People feel a sudden drop in temperature, and some see his face reflected in the glass or peeking from the cell bars before quickly vanishing. A strange, shadowy figure has been seen standing near the old front desk. Some believe it is the ghost of a long-dead desk sergeant who was shot by a criminal pretending to turn himself in. The figure disappears the moment anyone tries to approach. There are reports of typewriters clicking late at night in empty offices. Several officers believed it was the spirit of a murdered detective who never closed his final case. One retired officer said the sound would stop as soon as he stepped inside the room. In the basement, where evidence used to be stored, strange knocking and whispers have been heard. Paranormal teams recorded audio of a voice saying, "It's not over," followed by a loud crash. No one could explain where the noise came from. Perhaps the most disturbing story is of a young rookie officer who claimed to see an old prisoner shackled in a cell, staring blankly ahead. But when he opened the door, the cell was completely empty. That officer never returned to work another night shift. Even though the station is closed, the spirits of Maxwell Street seem to still be on patrol. Number 4. Highland Park Police Station in Los Angeles. The Highland Park Police Station in Los Angeles is not just one of the oldest police stations in California. It's also one of the most haunted in the entire United States. Built in 1926 and now a museum, this station once served during the city's most turbulent times, dealing with gang violence, murders, and mysterious disappearances. Over the years, countless officers, museum workers, and visitors have experienced strange and terrifying events inside its historic walls, making it a true hotspot for paranormal activity. One chilling story involves the ghost of a former officer who died by suicide in the locker room. Many have reported the sound of a single gunshot echoing late at night, followed by the locker doors opening and slamming shut on their own. In the upstairs office area, museum staff have seen a woman in an old-fashioned black dress looking out the window. When approached, she disappears into thin air. Records suggest a grieving widow once stormed into the station in the 1930s, begging for answers about her husband's death in custody. Visitors often hear footsteps on the stairwell when no one is there. A tour guide once followed the sounds, only to find an empty hallway with cold air and the faint smell of cigar smoke, something commonly associated with the station's former captain. In one holding cell, people report hearing humming, always the same lullaby, over and over. Legend says a mentally ill man once kept in that cell would hum to keep himself calm before dying mysteriously one night. The song has no known origin. Security alarms have triggered in the middle of the night with no explanation. One night, a guard found all the cell doors wide open, despite being securely locked just hours earlier. Surveillance footage showed nothing but static. Old typewriters on display have been heard clicking late at night. One worker once found a typed message on a blank sheet that read, "I never left." No one has claimed responsibility, and the typewriter was not plugged in. One of the creepiest stories involves a mannequin dressed in an old police uniform that reportedly moves positions when no one is looking. Some believe it is possessed by the spirit of an officer who died in the line of duty and now refuses to be forgotten. The Highland Park Police Station stands as a museum today, but its ghosts remain very much alive. Number 5. Ogden Police Department in Utah. The Ogden Police Department in Utah is often described as one of the most haunted police stations in the United States. With a history dating back to the late 1800s, this building has witnessed decades of violence, tragedy, and criminal investigations. Though modernized, the structure still carries the energy of everything that has passed through its doors. Officers, dispatchers, and cleaning staff have all experienced things that defy logic: whispers in the dark, ghostly figures, and unexplained sounds that seem to come from nowhere. One chilling story comes from the K-9 unit. Several police dogs refused to enter a specific hallway, growling and backing away with their ears down. Officers who investigated said they felt intense pressure in their chest and heard a deep growl, though no animal or person was there. A former night shift dispatcher claimed to hear someone calling for help over the radio. The voice begged, "Please, don't let him take me." But when the transmission was traced, it had come from inside the station, where no one was working. The old evidence room is another hot spot. One detective said he watched a locked evidence box slowly slide off a shelf and crash to the floor. When he opened it, the item inside, a bloody knife from an unsolved case, was missing. It reappeared days later in his locker. In the women's restroom, several employees reported hearing footsteps and someone crying in the last stall. When checked, no one was ever found. One officer even said the mirror fogged up with the word "alone" written across it. An elevator that has long been deactivated still randomly opens and closes, often at 3:17 a.m. sharp. Those nearby hear faint humming coming from inside, even though there's no power going to the elevator shaft anymore. A retired officer shared a story of seeing a shadowy figure standing in the squad room after everyone had left. The figure turned slowly, and its face appeared featureless, just smooth, pale skin. When he blinked, it was gone. One final tale tells of a hallway where time seems to shift. Several people reported walking down it and feeling like they had been inside for hours, only to check the clock and see only minutes had passed. The Ogden Police Department remains active, but its ghosts have never clocked out. Number 6. Denver Police Department. The Denver Police Department's historic building in Colorado is often called one of the most haunted police stations in the USA. Built in the early 1900s, it served during some of Denver's darkest times, including Prohibition, organized crime, and brutal street violence. Though it now serves administrative functions, many believe the spirits of the past never truly left. Officers, janitors, and city employees continue to report chilling experiences that suggest something deeply unsettling still lingers inside. One night, a patrol officer working overtime heard tapping on the glass window of an office. When he looked, he saw a pale man staring in from the hallway. As he walked closer, the figure disappeared, even though the hallway lights were off and the doors were locked from the inside. An eerie laugh has been reported echoing in the stairwells after midnight. Some say it belongs to a criminal who died after a violent scuffle with officers near the second floor. The laugh is always followed by the sound of running footsteps that never reach their destination. In the old captain's office, the sound of someone pacing can be heard when the room is empty. Furniture has been found moved slightly, and one staff member found a coffee cup filled with fresh liquid on a desk that hadn't been used in over 20 years. The break room is known for its flickering lights and sudden temperature drops. Several employees said their phones would ring with no caller ID, and when answered, only static and faint breathing could be heard. One of the most disturbing incidents occurred when a janitor saw what looked like a man in uniform standing silently near the evidence locker. When he spoke, the figure turned, revealing completely black eyes before vanishing into thin air. Security footage once captured a shadow crawling along the floor of a hallway. At first mistaken for a rodent, The footage showed something with human-like arms pulling itself along the ground before fading into the wall. Late at night, some claim to hear old typewriters clacking, even though none are in use. One officer reported seeing a blank piece of paper appear on his desk with the words, "He's still here," typed across it. The Denver Police Department's historic building may be functioning, but it's far from free of its ghosts. Number 7. Albany Police Station in New York. The old Albany Police Station in New York is known as one of the most haunted police stations in the United States. Built in the late 1800s, the building once stood as a symbol of law and order in a city filled with political corruption, violent crime, and dark secrets. Though the station was eventually closed and replaced, those who worked there or visited in its final years reported terrifying paranormal activity that has left a lasting impression. One chilling report came from a night shift officer who claimed he heard a woman's voice calling his name from an empty interrogation room. When he entered, the voice stopped, but the lights began to flicker violently, and the door slammed shut behind him. It took several minutes before it opened on its own. Another officer reported seeing a tall man in a long coat walking down the hallway near the locker rooms. He followed the figure, thinking it was a detective, but the hallway was completely empty. The figure vanished into a wall where an old door used to be decades ago. In the records room, several staff members reported files being thrown from shelves and papers scattered across the floor. One morning, a folder appeared on a desk with a case number that hadn't existed for years. When they tried to trace it, the system crashed and deleted all recent activity. One of the strangest stories involves a mirror in the hallway outside the old captain's office. People claimed to see faces in the glass, faces that didn't belong to anyone in the building. One visitor even saw herself reflected wearing 1920s clothing before fainting. Late-night janitors complained about strange smells like cigar smoke and burning paper, even though no one was smoking and nothing was burning. These smells were always strongest near the basement stairs, where an old incinerator had once been used to destroy evidence. During a quiet shift, dispatch received a 911 call that originated from inside the station. The call was silent, but background noise included heavy breathing and soft crying. When officers searched the entire building, it was completely empty. One final story comes from a retired officer who swore he saw the ghost of a fellow officer who died on duty. The spirit stood at the old front desk, nodded once, and vanished as a cold wind swept through the building. The Albany Police Station may be gone, but its ghosts are far from silent. Number 8. Old Pueblo Police Station in Pueblo. The Old Pueblo Police Station in Pueblo, Colorado, is considered one of the most haunted police stations in the United States. Built in the early 1900s, the building served the city through decades of violent crime, corruption, and tragic events. Though it no longer functions as an active police station, the structure remains standing, and many believe it holds the restless energy of the past. Former officers, maintenance staff, and visitors have all reported terrifying experiences within its walls, turning the station into a hotspot for paranormal activity. One of the most talked about stories involves the dispatch room. Long after the radios were disconnected, staff claimed to hear ghostly voices coming through the speakers. The voices were often distorted and whispered strange phrases like, "Don't forget me," and "He never left." No explanation was ever found. In the upstairs records office, papers would fly off desks without warning. Several workers heard the sound of typing on an unplugged typewriter, only to discover the same phrase typed over and over, "Still watching." The typewriter has since been locked away, but the activity has not stopped. A former officer reported seeing a figure in uniform standing in a hallway after hours. When he approached, the figure vanished into the wall. No one else was in the building, and the security footage only showed a flickering light in the area where the figure was seen. An eerie green light has been spotted glowing under the old evidence room door. No source of power exists in that section of the building anymore. Paranormal investigators claim the room has an unexplained electromagnetic field that changes wildly at night. In the old holding area, the sound of keys jangling and doors slamming is often heard. One custodian quit after seeing a man sitting in one of the empty cells who disappeared when he turned to call for help. The stairs leading to the basement are said to be cursed. Several people reported feeling pushed or losing their balance, always at the third step from the bottom. No physical damage was found, but the reports were so frequent the area was eventually closed off. Late at night, the building seems to come alive. Doors creak open, lights flicker, and shadows move without reason. The spirits of the Pueblo police station still guard their posts. Number 9. Hays County Jail in San Marcos. The Hays County Jail in San Marcos, Texas, is considered one of the most haunted jails in the USA. Built in 1885, it housed inmates for nearly 100 years before shutting down and later reopening as a museum. Though the cells are empty now, the building still carries the energy of pain, violence, and death. Visitors and staff often report chilling experiences that suggest the spirits of former inmates and jailers have never left. In the upstairs cell block, visitors have heard loud banging on the bars and footsteps pacing back and forth, even when no one is there. Some believe it's the ghost of a prisoner killed during a violent riot in the 1920s. He's said to still walk the upper tier, angry and restless. The women's cell is known for ghostly weeping. One volunteer said she saw a foggy figure sitting in the corner, gently rocking and humming. Legend says a young woman took her life there after being wrongly accused, and her sorrow remains trapped inside. In the kitchen, pots and pans rattle without warning. Cold gusts blow through even on the hottest days. A guide once felt someone brush past her near the stove, though no one else was around. The old dispatch radio still crackles to life, even though it hasn't worked in decades. One former deputy heard a voice whisper, "Don't forget me," just before the signal went dead. No source was ever found. Strange things happen on the stairs. People feel watched, followed, and even pushed. A tourist reported falling forward, claiming unseen hands shoved her from behind, yet no one was near her. The booking desk is haunted by a spirit that moves objects. Papers fall, chairs slide, and a deep voice was once caught on recording saying, "Still waiting." Museum workers avoid staying late in that room. One of the most frightening stories comes from a janitor who saw a man in an old jail uniform standing in a hallway. Thinking it was a mannequin, she ignored it until it turned and vanished into the wall. She never came back to work. The Hays County Jail may be a museum now, but its ghosts still linger, reminding all who enter that some prisoners never leave. Number 10. Ohio State Reformatory. The Ohio State Reformatory in Mansfield, Ohio, is one of the most haunted jails in the United States. Built in 1886, it operated for nearly a century, holding some of the state's most dangerous inmates. Known for its harsh conditions, overcrowding, and violence, the prison closed in 1990. Now a museum, it draws ghost hunters and thrill seekers from around the world. But many leave with more than just photos. They leave with chilling stories of encounters they'll never forget. Visitors often report hearing voices and footsteps in empty cell blocks. One of the most haunted areas is Cell Block A, where an inmate reportedly died after being locked in with a violent cellmate. People still hear banging on the bars and whispers in the dark. The solitary confinement wing is filled with an overwhelming sense of dread. Staff and guests say they felt cold hands touch their backs, and one person fainted after hearing heavy breathing in an empty cell. The warden's office is another paranormal hotspot. Warden Glatke died of a heart attack inside the prison, and soon after, his wife died from a mysterious gunshot wound. Her perfume is still smelled near the office, and her shadow has been seen on the staircase. In the old chapel, a dark entity is said to lurk. Some believe it's not human. A group of investigators reported being pushed and scratched by something they couldn't see. Others refused to enter the room alone. A maintenance worker once saw a man in a prison uniform walking down a hallway. When he followed, the figure turned and vanished into the wall. Cameras caught only a sudden burst of static and a drop in temperature. In the shower area, ghostly cries echo through the space. One visitor heard someone scream for help, but the room was empty. Some say it's the spirit of a prisoner who was attacked there and later died from his injuries. Perhaps the most disturbing encounter happened in the old infirmary, where many prisoners died in agony. A tourist took a photo and caught a pale figure standing behind them, though no one was there. The Ohio State Reformatory remains open, but the dead have never checked out.